Well, I'm Jim White. I am a University of Guelph graduate. I did my undergrad and my grad degree there. University is actually where I had my first exposure to beekeeping in an undergrad course. In 2000, we purchased a woodlot property at the top of the Beaver Valley in Grey County. And that was where I set up my first couple of hives. And over the years, I'm maintaining about 8 hives at that location. So that means beekeeping is a hobby. It's not a formal income source for me. I keep the bees in a partnership with a friend, and they keep their hives over in the Hockley Valley. That means then we have 4 hands to help each other in terms of managing the bees throughout the season, in terms of production, processing, and we came up with some sister brands of honey that we sell from our apiaries, a Jilly Bee and a Jimmy Bee. The other thing that our farming operation, so to speak, does is we do a variety of talks to local service groups about bees. And pre-COVID, we were into a particularly Peel school system to improve the understanding of bees and where honey comes from. Now, in terms of where do I continue to get my education about bees, because it really is, it's a continuum of learning. Just about the time you think you got it figured out, they throw you a curve. So I've taken a couple of courses from the Ontario Beekeeper Association, sometimes known as the OBA. They offer extension courses through the tech transfer team that they are intimately involved in. Participated in the Wellington County Beekeepers Association, and that has a very close working relationship with the University of Guelph at the Honeybee Research Center. Specifically, Paul Kelly, who is the manager of the Honeybee Research Center, he does an absolutely excellent job of extension, providing a hands-on learning experience, and he also provides evidence-based research that's current and always really practical from his Ontario-based research, along with having a good awareness of global research in honeybees, honeybee products, and production. Other areas that I rely on for continuing education is the Ontario Bee Journal, or the OBJ, is a bi-monthly publication. It's published by the Ontario Beekeepers, and it does a good job of informing us about topics of concern and interest. I also subscribe to the American Bee Journal, and where possible, try and take in seminars and that sort of thing. The 3 big sectors that I see we need to be concerned about is the first challenge, in my opinion, is honeybees are subject to a very specific parasite, veromites. And if you don't treat the colonies for control of veromites, the hive will die. There's a variety of management practices that will enable you in monitoring the disease or the parasite load. And there are very specific chemical products that are registered with Health Canada that are licensed for use in honeybees, and they're specific of use the right product at the right dosage at the right time, so you have no cross-contamination, and you keep your bees alive and healthy. So that would be my first one. The second one, I think, is a little bit more international in scope, and that is this challenge impacts the perception and the reality of honey as a natural, wholesome sort of sweetener. It has a very damaging effect on the brand of honey in terms of its wholesomeness, and it certainly has a negative impact on the market price globally, which then cascades down to locally on honey, and that is honey fraud. So this would be any adulteration to natural honey. Put it in some context, in 2018, I attended the World Apiamodia Conference in Montreal. And I was astonished. I heard about it, read about it, but I didn't realize until I was actually at the display where the honey entries were for judging of quality. So that would be purity, taste, color, of the number of samples that were submitted by global participants, resulting in being disqualified because the contents was simply not honey or something that was adulterated honey. So that would be my second one. The third challenge, I'm going to be a little more edgy here, and I think it might be a bit controversial, but relatively recently there was legislation passed by Health Canada that requires beekeepers to obtain a veterinary prescription for accessing a previously available over-the-counter antibiotic. And that antibiotic is needed in order to maintain the health of the hives from a very specific pathogen. If you get the pathogen, you have to burn the hives. There's legislation in place for that. So we were previously able to just purchase this antibiotic over the counter. Now we require a prescription. Now, having said that, certainly I recognize the importance of antimicrobial resistance and that both humans and animals play a role in managing the lifelong usefulness of antibiotics. So the antibiotic, whether it's being used or how it's being used, you have to follow the label instructions that encourages and ensures that no antibiotic would be available to the bees during honey production. And so my concern is the majority of the beekeepers in Ontario are hobbyists. And by that, the extension is the expense in both time and money of obtaining a prescription from a veterinarian and then purchasing the drug makes it a much more expensive regime that you have to follow. The action of not taking the preventative action, getting a prescription and treating, my concern would be that if it's not adhered to, the disease will grow in presence, and then you'll have a greater reservoir of the disease-causing bacteria, which could potentially elevate the risk of exposure for both hobbyists and professional beekeepers. So that would be my concern. The OBA has done a good job of supporting the regulations and providing educational information to veterinarians, because previously veterinarians really were not involved in honeybee production at all. So those would be my three. The innovation ideas, I must admit, are heavily influenced by what Paul Kelly does at the Honeybee Research Center. And a likely secondary from that would be the print journals from the Ontario Bee Keepers and the American Bee Journal. So in this particular case, Paul Kelly gets a note for credit in the innovation. And if I can, I'll tell you about what we do. It's painfully simple, but it works so much better than what we used to try and do in terms of getting feed to the hives. So quickly, the queen starts to lay eggs to build the population in the spring, sometime late February, early March. And so our objective as beekeepers is to successfully overwinter the whole colony. And it's not unlikely that we will have cold snaps in March and now into April, and the hive actually runs out of food, and so then that's called a starve out. It's really depressing if you've got your bees through the main part of the winter and then they die in the spring. So what we do is we prepare a 1-to-1 sugar syrup solution, and our innovation is how we deliver that. So we pour the syrup in a 1-liter baggie, and we open the top of the hive as quickly as we can because we don't want to chill the bees. We lay the baggie across the top frames of the hive, and then just with a knife, just slash the top side of the baggie. So there's a little slit there, and the bees can get at it. They have the ability to draw down that syrup, and we don't have a bunch of bees that drowned in the syrup or the syrup leaks all over and chills the bees. So it works really, really well for small scale beekeepers. And it's so simple to use, and it's very effective. And we learn about it from hands-on learning opportunities, as well as broadcast in the industry association for print media, e-media, and that sort of thing. Well, I think the simple way is, first, maybe I should just say, I believe the Ontario beekeepers do a really good job of outreach and getting research into practice. And a lot of that is driven by a coordination between the Ontario Beekeepers Association, the University of Guelph, and specifically the Honeybee Research Centre. And the impact of that is the university is really central in ensuring an adequate long-term staffing of the professional researchers and the qualified support staff that go along with that mandate in delivering world-class solutions and problems facing bees in Ontario, Canada, and to the greater extent globally. So beekeepers are really fortunate to have that world-class research at the University of Guelph. It's geographically located where I'd say the majority of beekeepers have relatively easy access. And then one particular individual, Dr. Ernesto Guzman, has, I think, a unique awareness and ability to deliver research results, and then have that cascade of communications by the Ontario Beekeepers Association, the tech transfer team, Honeybee Research at the University of Guelph, the Ontario Bee Journal, a variety of websites, podcasts, YouTubes that are put out, and then the county beekeeper associations also start to amplify that and get the message out. And lastly, OMAFRA, through its website, can make that information. So I think the fundamentals of getting research into practice are there. Risk that I would see is, will OMAFRA be able to provide timely and adequate funding to the beekeeping industry? And by that, will we be able to staff the new honeybee research facility properly and have the beekeeping industry recognized as its importance? Because, as we probably know, without bees, about a third of our food supply wouldn't be possible, because we need pollination. So the outcome would be we have a local sustainable source of food and some strong export opportunities for honey, as well as the pollinated fruits and seeds. I am on the board of directors for Livestock Research Innovation Corporation, and they have initiated a mentorship program that provides University of Guelph researchers, regardless of the length of time that they may have been employed at the university, an opportunity to visit a wide variety of farms in the, I'll say, a drivable distance from Guelph. Having participated in a couple of these events, I was astonished at how few of the participants had ever actually been on a farm. But even more exciting was how receptive, inquisitive the participants were to receive that opportunity. And it's a very simple concept. It's extremely well executed. It enables learning, building networks, as well as relationships that are going to be able to foster getting research into practice in Ontario agriculture. And if you want to know more about it, please call the Livestock Research Innovation Corporation's office, and they can get you started on that journey.